What if I don't have a client? Well, go get another one. You got one in the first place. Go get another one.
Very good.
Doctors have patients. And guess what? They get better.
Originating from deep inside the Rocky Mountains, transported through the power of the internet, and arriving inside your tiny earbuds. It's the Appraiser Coach Podcast, helping appraisers increase their efficiency, quality, and make more money. Here's the guy who makes it his life's mission to create value for real estate appraisers nationwide. Your host and the Appraiser Coach, Dustin Harris.
Welcome to the program, everybody. Welcome back to Dear USPAP Instructor. My good friend Tim Andersen is in the wings. First, I want to remind you of a couple of great companies you should familiarize yourself with. Of course, one is Alamode. Alamode, of course, the leader in appraisal writing software for residential appraisers across the nation. Check them out. Go to alamode.com or 800 Alamode and OREP Insurance. OREP is my choice for E&O. You do have a choice, folks. Don't forget that. And when you get ready to renew, don't forget OREP Insurance. OREP.org. That's OREP.org. Welcome back to the program, my good friend, the appraiser's advocate, Mr. Tim Andersen.
Mr. Dustin, what's happening? How are you?
It's really good. I'm good, my friend. I am good. I was telling you a little off the air. I've spent a little time in the outdoors the last week, and it's tough to get back to the office. But I'm glad I'm here visiting with you.
Yes, it is tough to get back to the office. And as I sit here in my studio and I look out over the lake and the green, and I wish I was outside.
Yeah, I hear you, my friend. I hear you. Okay. Well, to set this up, my good friends, listeners and watchers, if you're on YouTube, we on about a monthly basis visit with Mr. Tim Andersen, who is a USPAP instructor. He's also an individual that provides services to appraisers across the nation, helping them to solidify their reports, to defend themselves against state board and lawsuit situations. And he comes on as an expert when I have questions, which is often, my friend, that I can't answer. And so we turn to the experts. So Tim, thank you for doing this, by the way. I really appreciate your time. You don't get paid for this, but you come on and provide your services to appraisers. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. Thank you.
Oh, Dustin, it's a pleasure. I'm thoroughly glad to do it.
Good. I appreciate that. Well, let's dive right in. We had a question come in from Margie, one of our listeners. And she says this. She says, check out the revision that I got today. And then she quotes the revision. So, quote, appraiser to not adjust for concessions as they appear to be standard for the market, unquote. And then Margie asks, isn't this illegal? In parentheses, she says, I don't know if that's the right word, for the client to tell me what to adjust for and what not to adjust for.
Okay, Margie, thank you. Okay, first of all, no, it's not illegal because USPAP is not, quote unquote, the law. And even if it was, it doesn't govern the lender or the AMC. Dodd-Frank does, but that just says they can't exercise any undue influence, and asking and saying you don't need to adjust for concessions is not exercising undue influence. It is exercising stupidity on their part, however, because your reviewer is a growing fool. And I used the word earlier before we were on the air, starting with well, anyway. And Dustin thought the word was very descriptive, but told me that I would never be on the air again if I used it. So anyway.
I don't think I said that, but okay.
The reviewer is an idiot. Okay, first of all, cash equivalency has got nothing to do with what's standard in the market. If you read the Fannie Mae Selling Guide, it says in so many words that if the financing inflated the purchase price over what it would have been had the buyer sold for cash and the buyer paid for cash, the appraiser must adjust that inflation out of the price, whether it's standard in the market or not. On the other hand, if financing did not inflate the purchase price over what it would have been under those conditions, there's nothing to adjust out. So the reviewer saying don't adjust out because it's common in the market is stupid. It's like saying every house in the neighborhood has a swimming pool except the subject, therefore don't adjust for it because they've all got swimming pools. It doesn't make any difference. That's just dumb. And unfortunately, such comments coming in from reviewers from AMCs are becoming far too common, far too standard. And we're obviously dealing with some type of disease, the manifestation of which is a 10 to 20% drop in IQ as soon as one becomes a reviewer for an AMC. So unfortunately, we'd like to cure that disease, but we're not aware of any shots or treatments for it. It just happens, and we appraisers have to smile, accept the fact that we are dealing with cretins, and move on.
Let's talk a little bit deeper here, Tim, and I think I understand what you're saying. Not just with concessions, but other things, and you alluded to it, but I just want to kind of dig into it as an appraiser might have a question regarding, where is the line between suggestions and, where undue influence does come in. When an underwriter comes back and says, we think you ought to do this, when is an appraiser justified in saying, well, damn it, I'm the appraiser, I know what I need to do, versus, okay, it might be a good idea, let me look at that.
Well, the thing is, it might be a good idea, and the appraiser should look at it. But remember, influence is not something passive. It's active, and it's active on the part of the appraiser. The appraiser has to accept that undue influence.
Gotcha.
Because the appraiser can say, okay, look, I checked out the Fannie Mae Selling Guide, and the Fannie Mae Selling Guide totally disagrees with you. The definition of market value totally disagrees with you. The USPAP totally disagrees with you. So I will continue to make cash equivalency adjustments when I determine they are appropriate by having read the market. The fact that you don't like it, yeah, that's just tough noogies.
Got it.
Because I am going to be independent, impartial, objective. I'm going to be competent despite what you're asking me to be. So I will forgive you your stupidity. I will forgive you being a drooling cretin and continue to work with you in an attempt to make sure that you're getting solid, credible appraisals and appraisal reports that are not misleading despite what you're asking for.
Got it. I think that makes a lot of sense. If you feel that influence and I remember years ago, and I shared this on the air because the statute of limitations is way past. But when I first started appraising years and years and years ago, there was a client that I worked for, very prominent. Everybody would recognize the name. And one of their requirements was that you had to use comps, quote unquote comps, that were within 3 miles, that you could not go outside that barrier. And sometimes I had comps that were 4 miles out that couldn't be used because this particular client had that stipulation. And I know you and I've had this conversation before about, what point does it become influence, undue influence? At what point does it become good appraisal practice? At what point does it, there's this line between business, right, and having good relationships with your clients and being an impartial appraiser that's going to look at the market as a whole rather than just what the implications are in the scope of work.
Well, the lender can require you to sacrifice a sheep, prior to turning in your appraisal report. That doesn't mean you have to do it.
Well, I've got 3 that require me to do that. It's fine.
Okay, but if they're good clients, it's okay.
Right.
But the client can require anything it wants to. It's up to the appraiser to decide if the appraiser is going to let that requirement influence them, and then to what extent.
Right.
So this is the type of situation in which, when, for example, the one you just listed, the we can't have any comps more than 3 miles away. Okay, they can require that, but then it's your job to look at the market, and if you can find comps within 3 miles, use those. If you can't, and let's face it, that's not always possible, then you're going to go outside of those 3 miles, or you're going to go further back in time than they would probably like. But then, Dustin, that's also reason to sit down, maybe on a quarterly basis, and say, do I enjoy having dips for clients? Maybe I ought to fire this one because they are complete idiots. And appraisers need to have an idiot meeting, at least quarterly, in which they say, okay, here are all my clients. I'm going to get rid of the idiots. And unfortunately, there are plenty of them out there.
Yes.
And appraisers say, well, what if I don't have a client? Well, go get another one. You got one in the first place. Go get another one.
Very good.
Doctors have patients. And guess what? They get better. That's what doctors do. They say, I can fix that. And they fix it. And then they don't have a patient anymore. So they got to go get another one. Well, okay. It's called marketing. Okay. Go get another client. Or expand your practice away from GSE work. That's really the secret.
There you go.
Expand your work so that you don't have to depend so heavily, so deeply on GSE work.
We're talking with Mr. Tim Andersen, who is not an idiot. Stay tight or hang tight there, Tim, because we have an anonymous question coming up. You always know they're juicy when they're anonymous. First, want to pause and remind you that we're sponsored by a couple of great companies. Of course, E&O is not something you think about frequently, but when it comes to continuing education, I think OREP Insurance. As a client of OREP Insurance, I get 14 free FREE hours every single year of education that counts toward my recertification. Folks, these are just a very smidgen of the benefits that you get with OREP. Check them out. Go to their website, go to orep.org. That's OREP.org. A la mode, again, probably not something you think about, even though you open up your computer every day. You're probably in a la mode every day. Folks, if you're not, you know about a la mode. You know about Total. You know about Total for mobile. You know about all of these wonderful things. Why are you not there? I'm guessing it's because you're just doing what you've always done. You're probably doing what your mentor did. You're using the same old software that you've used for years and years and years. I implore you to check out the better software, the leader in software for residential appraiser writers. That is a la mode. Check them out by going to their website at alamode.com, or you can call them at 800 a la mode. And welcome back to the program. Dustin Harris, the appraiser coach, hanging out with Tim Andersen, the appraiser's advocate. Tim, tell us a little bit about what that means to be an appraiser's advocate. What do you do?
Dustin, I help appraisers. Since I don't appraise anymore, rather than get out of appraising, which is something I like, I oriented my business toward helping appraisers. And that means when they're in trouble with the state, when they're doing expert witness work, when they're a defendant. It means going over their reports so that they don't become a defendant. They're not up before their states. And many of those who have purchased my services have been quite pleased with them. Some haven't, but most of them have. So it's a service that I provide. It's a service that I enjoy providing. And it's a service that, as far as I can tell, appraisers need.
Very cool. I've utilized that service, folks, and I can tell you it is well worth any money spent. The value you get back is tenfold. All right, Tim, let's talk about questions that have come in from our listeners. This came from an anonymous source. And I'll be honest with you, it's a little bit confusing to me just because it's so brief. So I think we should probably dig into the question a little bit. Most people are not going to know what certification number 21 is. So let's start with that. Is there a conflict, this person asks, between certification number 21 and the confidentiality section of the ethics rule?
Okay, we're not going to read it because it's up on the screen.
Got it.
But here's what it comes down to. Confidentiality applies to appraisers, not lenders, not clients. So as a result, what's interesting is the Bank B can acquire Bank A, and then the loan officer from Bank B can have a copy of your appraisal in her hand and call you up and say, we have questions about the appraisal, and you can't answer them because you don't have permission from your original client, Bank A, to talk to anybody about that appraisal. So even though she's sitting at her desk holding the appraisal report, reading to you from it, other than say, yes, I did the appraisal, and yes, that's my signature, there's absolutely nothing you can say about it. This, what you're looking at on the screen, goes a little bit further. And basically, it says that the lender can basically give a copy of the appraisal report to anybody with a functioning pulse. Okay. The appraiser, excuse me, the lender paid for it. You sold it to them when you cashed the check. So it's theirs to do with as they please. And they can put it on the internet. They can strip the data from it. They can put the information into offering circulars, so long as they properly quote you. They can't plagiarize you. But the thing is, the sales data are public record. You can't protect those. Okay. Your intellectual property are your analytics. You can protect those. Okay. And you protect those by not talking to anybody about them other than the client.
Yeah.
That's the confidentiality part of it. But the photograph, anybody can take pictures. I mean, anybody can drive by the house and take pictures, so the pictures aren't confidential. The square footage is public record. Even if it's wrong, it's still public record, because anybody can slap tape upside the house and measure it, assuming that they have the permission of the property owner. But let's face it, you're appraising for Wells Fargo out of San Francisco and a house in Missouri. What does Wells Fargo care about the size of the GLA? Okay. And then remember, just because the homeowner may say, well, please keep this confidential. Well, you're under no obligation to do that. And in fact, you could be violating the definition of the word misleading if you choose to keep it confidential from your client, because you have a relationship with the property owner other than courtesy and professional respect. Or excuse me, courtesy and respect, and conduct yourself as a professional while in the property. But your confidentiality goes to the client. Appraisers have no fiduciary. We do not act for the benefit of other people. Brokers have a fiduciary. We do not have a fiduciary to anybody. Okay. We have, we must be competent and a few other things, but you look in vain for the word fiduciary referring to an appraiser, because appraisers do not have a fiduciary relationship. Appraisers do not protect the client. They do not protect the homeowner. They don't protect the borrower. They don't protect the seller. They don't protect the broker. Appraisers don't protect anybody. We are supposed to protect the public's trust in appraisal. That says it in the preamble, but we don't protect anybody. So from the standpoint of 21, this gives a lot of our stuff away. And let's face it, if we agree to it, there's not much we can do about it. This is why it's really important, Dustin, when appraisers are not appraising for GSEs, they don't use GSE forms, because this is going to be there. And this doesn't apply to non-GSE work. Therefore, why include it? Why give away this part of the protection? And this is something a lot of appraisers are not yet up to speed with. So if what you and I do can help them get up to speed with that, that's wonderful. Good. That's why we're here.
For sure. Yeah, I remember early on in my career, very early on, getting a phone call from an individual who was reading from my report, and that individual was clearly not my client, and being a little upset and a little frustrated. And you can't do that. USPAP says you can't do that. And I think your point, Tim, is we need to remember that there is USPAP, which applies to appraisers, and then there are other obligations, other responsibilities that our client might have with regard to Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, FIREA, or even non-lender. They've got their own set of ethics and morals and that kind of thing to deal with that we don't mix up. And I think the anonymous question kind of mixes up. You got certification number 21, which is a Fannie Mae certification, and then you've got the ethics rule, the confidentiality section of the ethics rule, which of course is USPAP. And sometimes those things don't merge.
A lot of times they don't merge. And even with all the changes that are coming out to the ethics rule in the 2024-25 USPAP, that part of the ethics rule, the confidentiality section of the ethics rule, did not change.
Got it. Thank you. Tim Andersen, how do people get a hold of you when they need your services, which I would advocate they need your services all the time? How can they reach out to you?
Dustin, thank you. They can get in touch with me via email at tim@theappraisersadvocate.com.
Thank you, Mr. Tim Andersen. And folks, if you're listening and watching on YouTube, if you will please just take 2 seconds, hit the like button. It really helps. Hit subscribe. You won't miss any of these, of course, if you do so. And thank you for joining us. And Tim, thanks again for your time today.
Oh, Dustin, sure. It's my pleasure. I'm glad to. I look forward to our monthly meetings.
Thank you, friend.
You've been listening to the Appraiser Coach podcast with Dustin Harris. If you like what you hear, please give us a 5-star rating and post a short review on iTunes. For more in-depth insider information on how you can make more money as a real estate appraiser, visit theappraisercoach.com and sign up for the All-Star team today. Thanks for joining us. And now, get out there and create some value.